Let's do the birthday stream all over again. Hang on a minute. They're checking about the check-in for tomorrow and stuff. Thank you so much. Thank you. Screaming goats and everything. Screaming goats only. I need the lid for my powder. And it's gone. It's gone, ready to go. Maybe I'll use this lid. Hi, Theo! You're currently logging into work laptop to take tomorrow and Friday off because I can't be asked. To be fair, Theo, I mean, while I appreciate it is like, it's a job and such, but you are dealing with other people complaining like all the time. That must take quite a toll on being so... That's quite a lot, isn't it? Like, to just be like, oh, to deal with all the time. Where is this? Oh, the brush I had. Star Trek, how are you? Yeah, the patience isn't always there. I can't imagine it would be. That sounds really frustrating. Wait, what does that mean, Punisher? Sorry. Had to refresh. Sometimes I think my ABS just like glitches out for a sec. Sometimes it does it. Because sometimes to me it kind of like black screens really quickly. But then it comes back. So I don't know. I don't know, but you know I've been having some OBS things over the past few years. Your OBS is still broken too? I think, or is it Twitch? I think it's OBS, to be honest with you. It went completely. Sometimes, yeah, no, that's what I mean. For me, sometimes it like doesn't look like anything's happened. But then it also, in some cases, looks like it just, it kind of like freezes for a second. And I think when it kind of freezes for me, because I'm kind of like, and then, because I can see you guys being like, oh, so that's why I don't think it's Twitch, because I can still see you guys usually talking, which is why sometimes I'm not always convinced that it's gone down, but it just kind of like, so I think it just temporarily kind of goes offline. But I wondered if that's what breaks your streaks sometimes. And they're just having us refresh. Yeah, I don't know. I think my OBS sometimes glitches out. But the thing is, as well, as to be fair, I've put in so many plugins. Skynet is taking over. That's it. It's finally time. Yeah, sometimes it just like glitches out for a sec. But like it comes, my eyebrows are completely different today. It comes back. It's just, yeah. It's like in a weird way, it's harmless, right? It's not like, that's it, I can't get back online. I noticed as well, sometimes it's like VPN. Like VPN will cause it to like, ow. Like sometimes it just doesn't like it. Where the hell did I put my eyebrow pencil? Got you, Zero. So you don't think it matters so much for short streams? Les Banana definitely has way more. Yeah, Fuji! Did you see the panel I did about that? Ah, okay. The 100 body paint video was very cool. Thank you. Oh, noodles, please. Right, let's do this one first. You did a panel as a VOD? Oh, it's from so many years ago, Fuji. I'm not sure. It was like one of the first panels I did, I think. And it was about like a brief history of like some certain like video game mistakes and stuff years ago. It was a really fun panel, and they explained a lot of those like little bits. Yeah, Michael, that was really strange last night. That's why I was trying to send you the clip to see if that would help. I thought that was really odd. Asuka's really uses so many different colours, so it's her fault that we've got more brushes to wash. Ghost was painting my tongue today, and he just was like, am I gonna have to wash this brush? Yeah. I'm here, dang it. Yeah, exactly. Like, then you understand, but you're like, God damn, I'm actually here though. Who do we think Star Trek is? One of those characters from Star Wars, no? Uh-oh. Shop stuff emergency. Nobody is ready for Asuka. I think that's how it's said. I had a brush that I was going to use. It was like red, and now it's gone. Oh, I'm losing track of everything today, chat. You know. Yeah. I hate cold. I'm running away, Kelsey. I'm running away. I'm going on holiday. I'm so excited. But also, like, it's so cold. Where the hell has this brush gone? It was right. I don't want to talk about that. Thank you. Yeah, I'm going on holiday tomorrow. Finally! -13! I'm like sobbing. And it's 23 degrees in my room and I can't handle this. It's too much. I feel like I've been punished. This is just it's too much. It's gone too far. Mel is a cat. Do you know a lot of people say that? It was 30 in my room. Yeah, it was. You love cold weather. Look, I don't mind cold if I like choose to be there. Like if I choose to go to Iceland, then I feel it's different. I've chosen that. Whatever's going on right now is not a choice from me. Therefore, no. Queen, I don't know the rest of the lyrics either, but I don't think it matters, you know? Cold with consent, exactly. Because you've got options. I think it depends on how hot. Okay, ultimately, I think we can all agree. I don't really care if it's like too cold or too hot, as long as I'm not living in it, right? If I go on holiday there, then that's fine. If I live and work that life, no. Oh God, yeah, you're right. Zero. Gosh, do you know what? I'm all over the place. I can wear a reading shawl and be cozy without overheating. This sounds like you guys are really good at staying warm. It sounds like you lot generate enough body heat. I don't. I have to recharge. The sun charges me like a USB-C port. I can't do that. It doesn't work. I'm constantly freezing. I don't think I produce my own heat. And I'm still cold and grumpy. I can't sleep. Okay, but like, if you're still cold with that on, because I was considering getting one. Your heating is set for 13. No. Mine's set to 21. Like, it's set to 21 and I'm still sobbing. When Ghost isn't here, I'll try I tend to like try and turn it up to like 25. Yeah, striking. Don't listen to Bink, they're an outlier. No way, no way. It's set to random, it doesn't follow any rules. What? The comic character stole one of her mutant abilities. She's never too hot or too cold due to her ability to manipulate the weather. Good for her. You know what? Good for her. She can pull off any outfit in any weather and not think this would look better if my jacket was unzipped. But I'm cold, so I have to zip it up instead of thinking like, for the aesthetic. It's never crossed her mind. 21, I'm always cold too. Lil Witchy, you and me together. You know and you get it. Will there be a celebration at Pate 1200? No way. No way, that's not enough in my opinion. I think celebration comes at like 2,000. Why the hell are these people freezing in their houses? I mean, yeah, we live very different lives. And I have the window open. I don't remember the last time I opened a window. Sweat's getting out. Oh, no. Don't worry, Wild. You can do that in the chat. You can do convert. I checked and the second law of thermodynamics doesn't work in my house. Wait. No, Michael, sorry. Convert 16C to F. Like, you have to tell it what to do it to. Oh, they're not got me a hoodie jumper during Christmas. That says, I'm always cold, but that's how I am 24/7. My husband says it's not cold, and I'm over here freezing. It's not cold. Go put your feet on him, Witchy. Then ask him, is it cold or not? What speed painting inspiration? Yeah. I mean, I wish I could do more all the time. In my opinion, I don't really paint fast enough. I don't paint enough, but my goal for this year is also to take breaks a bit more. What kind of AI can't read my mind? I went outside in a tank top, leggings, and my thin robe to breathe the crisp air and watch the snow. Some really strange people in my chat. Mel, perfectionist. I don't think I'm a perfectionist, to be honest with you. I just want to keep practicing. I just want to keep going and... I could go out wearing 3 duvets and I'd be cold. I had a massive fever at the time. You got cold towards the end? No. I'm not going outside. I'm not going. You can't make me open that door. In pajamas, t-shirts and slippers? Yeah, no. No. I just can't live the life that you guys live. Okay? My Filipino DNA is currently dormant and it's unsure what's going on. It hurts. My insides hurt. It's cold. I can feel it in my bone marrow. You could have all of the summer heat. Thank you. Don't make me activate. I need to go recharge in the sun. I'm basically a flower, okay? That's it. I'm just... Nothing else, nothing more. I'm going to go on holiday. Thank you very much. I'm going to go on holiday and I'm going to reactivate my DNA. Thank you, Mr. Piggy. I hope you're well.
Hey, you guys!
Hey, you guys! This feels insane. This is like... Hi, Lucinda, how are you? In the summer, that is an intense heat. I don't really remember if I've been in the summer, to be honest. I've been to some places with very extreme heats before. I don't think I've been to the Philippines in summer. I think usually we go in... Well, this has been... no, that's a lie! No, yes, I have been in the summer. Yes, a few years ago. Just before the pandemic. Oh, Lucinda, we can't do any pet names like baby and stuff because of the chat rules, because people have gotten really weird with me in the past, so I'm afraid we can't do pet names. Thanks so much, Mr. Piggy. My favourite summer getaway is Scotland. Hot places in the summer sound rough. I don't mind, to be honest with you. I think it depends. Hot and humid. Yeah, I mean... I don't really feel... Like, put it this way, I'd rather not... I'm glad it's not cold, you know? is the Pooposaurus Rex. Thank you. That's quite creative. Well, it's a whole, yeah, that's the thing. If you're like having to like work or like, that it's just different, isn't it? It's not the same. Because you like lounge about by the pool, or you go and sit by the, like you are doing certain things which are different. You're not working, you're not carrying heavy things. It's just different. It's not the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Chat, thank you so much. Kyle, thank you so much for gifting to Kelsey. Thank you so much. Guys, I hope you love the emotes. If you got gifted a sub, please don't forget to say your thank yous. Are you familiar with pro wrestling at all? No. Yesterday, my chat tried to give me a crash course. I learnt the word kayfabe, heel, and babyface. I had immediate wrestling crash course yesterday. I know nothing. Lunch is ready. Chat, I got my instant noodles from Hong Kong. That's breakfast time. Chat, look at my chopsticks. Aren't they so cute? Oh my god. I haven't had instant ramen in so long. They're so cute, aren't they? From last year. Or 2 years ago. Did you, Zach? What flavor did you have? I agree with you, Wild.
Yeah.
Kaz, thank you so much. Thank you. Chat, as everybody forgot who the gifted sub, please don't forget to say your thank yous. Mostly Kyle. I want to I want to like clean up the studio a little bit before I go, because I think I'd feel better about it if I came back and it was tidy, you know what I mean? Surely a normal sized spoon. Only chopsticks today. I'm currently watching an anime called The Ascendance of a Bookworm. And it was really nice until the rich people got involved. They were literally like, yes, like you should sell it for as much money as possible because it's always better to have more money. So you always want to charge as much as possible to get as much money as possible. And I was like, I think you'd actually kind of like it, Theo. It's about this girl who's trying to get books. And it's in like a little fantasy world. And she's trying to get hold of books. As an anime, the visually looks a little bit older, but I don't really mind. Ascendance of a Bookworm. I don't want to tell you too much else because I don't want to like spoil it. Maybe I should only try and do this look today because I'm gonna have to take it off to do some more filming later. So maybe after this one, let's see what time it is. First sign form. Nice. Did you find out anything about when you're moving? If you're, what's going on, Michael? Of course, Wader. Thank you so much for buying. Ghost is sorting it all out. I actually just need to reply to someone. But when I threatened to quit after, their eyes got so big, so hopeful I'll hear something soonish. Okay. Aww!
Postman Pat and his black and white cat. Early in the morning, just as day is dawning, he picks up all the post bags in his van.
Oh, it's such a cute, wholesome song. Oh no, that's an anime AC. That's why I was confused. Yeah, sorry, I should have been clearer. Yeah, so The Ascendance of a Bookworm. It's very, very cute. But yeah, they, interesting. It's 40 episodes overall. And I thought, I could probably handle that. That's probably not too much for me. What's the last anime you guys have been watching? Or do you guys watch it at all? I like it, but I see myself as a bit more of a casual watcher. I'm not really like extremely into it, you know what I mean? They are AC because I can't understand, so I watch One Piece, slowly build my way up to One Piece. I don't know what I'll watch next. I was sad because Spy Family doesn't have any more episodes. I didn't think that that was the end of the like 3rd season or whatever. The slice of life ones, just chill vibes. There was one that I just finished watching and it was really cool. And it wasn't intense. Because I think I'm sick of watching a lot of intense ones. It was The Apothecary Diaries. Now, I don't know if you'd be interested in it, to be honest with you. It was about a girl who, like, works in the Rear Palace. And she, like, makes medicine. And she, like, solves puzzles and stuff. Then there's, like, bits of drama. But in my opinion, they're not, like, big drama. I like 4 or 5 behind on Spy Family. Oops, I dropped it. I really like Spy Family. But it does stress me out sometimes. I don't know about you. Yeah, I started watching it, but I'm not too into it yet. I'm just not, it just hasn't drawn me in, but I think I might try again. That's what, oh, to 5. Yeah, I mean, it had like a slow build up, like, to say the least. What's Angelic Layer? I don't think I've heard of that one. And then not sure which one to start. Neon Genesis. You might quite like the Apothecary Diaries. I don't know. It's hard to say because I think for some people it would be like... I think some people might see it as a little bit too flowery. But I thought it was quite... I liked it. I thought it was really good. But I am a little bit tired of really heavy, insane fight scene. You know what I mean? I'm kind of tired of that. Just because I'd like seen so many one after another. I haven't seen that one yet, Wader. I was unsure because... Oh my god, forgive me. I didn't really like Spirited Away. I watched it a few years ago for the first time, and I really didn't like it. But understand, it wasn't the it wasn't the way that it was. It was the story. I didn't like how dark it was. I think it was very visually very pretty, and I think if I was younger, I would really like that. And I'm not taking that away. What was bothering? I just hated how she was like working in a very... She had to like work in such an adult environment. Like, and it just to me, and I looked into it afterwards, and I think the tones of like paying off her parents' debt by like, as a child working in like a adult environment and atmosphere, and the old lady like taking the money, yeah, like that, and then trying to escape but having tricks being played to stop you from escaping. So I just like that sort of stuff. So they I can't remember the guy's name, sorry, because I'm not really like... What's his name? Miyazaki. So what are they called? Studio Ghibli Dark Themes. Because they all have some thing underneath them, don't they? It's so smart. I like the way they made them. Same! Oh my god, Mr. Piggy. And do you know what made me realise? Seeing her be smart and not whiny made me realise how many animes are like that. And I realised, I was like, oh my god, you're so... I just hadn't noticed before. I was just like, oh, that's just the way it is. But then seeing someone just be normal. Anyway, yeah, I thought that's what I thought. Mr. Bear felt exactly the same. Yeah, so I think, I don't know, because I've only seen half of My Neighbor Totoro. I think that one's about like childhood death or something, isn't it? And then, so she works in the bathhouse. It's the bathhouse, yeah. I actually started to one day, Wader, but then I fell poorly, so I had to stop. Yeah, I'm not seeing the... There was a few articles, and I feel like now I'm looking, there's none. Yeah, basically, I felt like the themes to me were, as an adult, I thought they were quite clear that they were quite dark. But there's a few dark themes that run between a lot of the Ghibli films. Not all of them. I actually really liked the girl with the cat, the witch girl, because I didn't sense anything dark about it. I haven't seen Princess Mononoke though, but a lot of people tell me to watch that one. And I hope to watch it eventually. But that's why I didn't like Spirited Away. I thought it was beautiful and very pretty. But the story to me was like, that was so rough and so dark. It was a bit of a shock that I didn't like it. Oh, Queen, same. Oh my god. I was really confused. I thought it was just gonna be a cute film. Yeah, because I think if I had watched it when I was younger, I wouldn't have picked up on it because I wouldn't have known about any of that stuff, right? But watching it as an adult, I was like, oh my god, that's awful. I was like, oh my god, what an awful thing for her to experience. Like, oh my god. I still don't, but I had to reframe my whole mind because, dear god. Yeah, that was a dark story. And how they like tried to trick her with gritty artwork and it would be a horror. Yeah. It was really interesting, wasn't it, how it was done, I thought. That it's that it is cutesy. But it's not, there's nothing cute about that story, I think. Must have had a censored version at the time. God, maybe. But yeah, Queen, I had the same experience as you, and I was just like, oh my god, that's awful. But like, I don't think the film is awful. I just think the storyline is so harrowing. And I started to watch My Neighbor Totoro. I got a bit bored of that one. And then I watched... Oh, I don't remember her name. No, not the Firefly one. I haven't seen that one. Which ones? What does that look like on the cover? Because maybe I've seen it advertised. The Firefly one. I like the one with the cat. I didn't sense anything bad about that one. The witch one. It's quite refreshing to do a messy makeup look, you know. Grave of Fireflies. Oh my god. Kiki, thank you. Oh my god, Kiki, yes. Kiki's delivery service. That one was fine. It is a vague general description. Kyle got it. Kiki's is safe. Yeah, that was a safe one. That one's fine. Thank you. Chat, look at what that weird person has said. Look at that. Chat, look at that strange thing. That's like, you know when people go up to people in public and they like stick a camera in front of them and they're like, tell me how much your mortgage is. Tell me something that you should have said to your so-and-so before they passed away or something. Like, and they ask you the most personal questions. We should not ever normalize asking people really personal questions that we don't know. What a strange thing to say. We just say that someone's face in a pub? Like, imagine just going up to someone. Dude, that has come because people think that's really normal to do. Or they're like, oh, it's edgy. What an awful thing to do. People do that and it's like such an uncomfortable thing. Have you seen those videos where people ask like people really uncomfortable questions and they don't know them? They clearly don't know them. Talk about an icebreaker. Crush the ice so bad there's just no ice left because no one's interested in talking to them. They'll say that until that's the thing, isn't it? Like they just until something will happen to these people.
Ew.
Ew, brother. Ew. What's that? What kind of question is that,
What's
brother?
that, brother?
Thank you, Mr. Piggy. I watched an online watch party and almost thought it was going to be a cute movie, and it was my first Ghibli. I needed oh my god, Spirited Away was like my first Ghibli film as well, and I was like, I'm sorry. I feel like I have been falsely advertised what's going on here. I don't think I ever thought that it was going to be like this. No one suggested. I thought it was pretty and cute. Everyone says they love this film. It hurts. This film hurts. The pig parent stuck with me. Yeah, because of the greed. Oh my god, yeah. Whenever I talk to someone that says anime is just for kids or it's only a cartoon, I always suggest Grave of Fireflies. Guys. You go in with the psychological trauma. You're like, yeah, okay, yeah. Have you actually, do you know what you could watch? Kaz making sure that these people coming out with these like ignorant comments will never be the same again. There is so much, right, Fozzie? I haven't seen too many. I read about some of them online, but yeah, as soon as I watched Studio Ghibli, Spirited Away, I was like, huh? That's kids' movies of 18 plus to, oh my, do you know what? I think this as well about like games. When people are like games are for children, I'm like, then why is it marked 18 plus? That's an age rating. And that is specifically an adult. It's got an age of 18 plus, let it go for children. Are you serious? That's so stupid. That's the equivalent of saying something like a hardcore horror film that's 18 plus is designed for children. Because it's like the similar kind of age rating. I don't know what games and what films are aged 18 plus, right? I'm thinking of horror, but can you see what I mean? Like that is genuinely one of the most insane points I think I've ever heard. My favorite children's game is Outlast. Oh yeah, the Outlast trials when they're in the orphanage. Oh yeah, that's my favorite kids moment. Where all the nuns are on the tables. And the tables are shaking. Oh yeah, they're so kids. Are you serious? Like GTA, another great children's game. I love all these children's games. Oh yeah, good point. Yeah, they're children. Layers of Fear is a cozy art game for kids. That's one of my favorites. Let's play Silent Hill. I love that one. It's just got dolls in it. There's nothing scary about Dead by Daylight. Jesus. Like, it's one of the most ridiculous. The thing is, right? Here's the thing. When they think of video games, they think of Super Mario. And when I think of video games, I'm like, oh yeah, Silent Hill. I'm like, yeah, Silent Hill, Tomb Raider, Resident Evil, Outlast. It's the story of a man who's in love and is looking for his girl. about the friends he makes along the way. They think of like Fortnite. We think of zombies and death. Yeah, exactly. Right, okay, but here's my thing. But in the same tongue, sorry, that's not saying. But in the same breath, they're like, oh yeah, The Last of Us was a really good TV show. You watch WWE? No. No, I don't. Chat recommended some makeup looks and I'm recreating them. The Witcher, The Last of Us, Fallout, Tomb Raider. Hellraiser, but then left the disc in the player. We came back to his house later, his mum was watching it. We thought, oh no, she's gonna be so freaked out watching that, but she was laughing her head off. Okay, also me watching Paranormal Activity though. I don't know. Ghost must have such a strange opinion of me because he watched Paranormal Activity when it came out. He wouldn't walk in the room while I was watching Paranormal Activity. He was like, I can't go in there. I was watching it and I was like, let's go! I want this demon to win! Like, this demon needs to take out this boyfriend. He's toxic AF, man. Get him! Go on! Grab him! Yeah, get him! He's a red flag anyway! Send him to the depths! The man just stomps around and annoys them and then he doesn't even do it. Oh my god, you're the demon. No, the thing that got me about Paranormal Activity was like, that guy was such a red flag. He's like, no ghost is gonna come into my house and mess with and upset my wife and my fiance. No one's gonna hurt her. Yeah, because you're the one hurting her. You're the only guy, so this demon's doing you all the favor by taking you out. He specifically punched a hole in the picture frame of you because you're the problem here. You're the demon in the house. As far as I'm concerned, this is like Jesus or something. He's like, mate, you've got to go. You've got to go. This is really bad. And he's like, Gal, we got to get you away from this guy. And he's like, no one should hurt my fiance. It's so ridiculous. Come on. No, come on. The amount of red flags is unreal. The amount of things where she's like screaming and he's like, oh my god, like maybe just like, and then he's like, and then he's like filming and she's like, can you turn the camera off? And he's like, yeah, I turned it off. And she's like, I don't think you did because the light's still on. He's like, I did. He lies. He films her without her consent. She's consistently like, get that camera out of my face. And he's like, yeah, okay. Then continues to film it. He is such a red flag of a boyfriend. He is a bad boyfriend. He's so terrible. She's not even safe in her own home. She's going through it. And he's just filming. Every time she's like, can you stop filming, please? I'm getting upset. And he's just like, yeah, no problem. With his giant camera. Oh, but we need to film for the ghost. Yeah, I know, and I get that. That's the point of the entire film. I get that. But like, he's such an awful boyfriend. Good thing USD, how about you? Was filmed here locally. I enjoyed it, but really to be honest, suspension of disbelief when they went down in the basement. We don't have basements here in Southern California. I don't even remember the basement moment. If you want to watch a very funny movie where the demon's accidentally the protagonist, Wish Upon with Joey King is pure comedy. I've never heard of that. What is that? She's ranting about Paranormal Activity. No worries, Mr. Piggy. Treatment time. Everyone here on the best day of the night. Have the best holiday ever. Thanks so much, Mr. Piggy. Please take care. Look after yourself. And I'll see you when I get back. Thanks, Mr. Piggy. Good luck with your treatments today. She finds a box with a wish demon who takes something when he grants a wish, but the main character is a dumb teenager and like doesn't pay attention. And you can tell the demon's like, please, I can't handle this stupid girl. Oh my god, Les Banana, can I recommend please that you read a webtoon? And I beg that you read this webtoon because I think you'd love it so much. Okay, can you agree first before I tell you what it is? I would agree, yes. Okay, great. It's called Love Advice from the Great Duke of Hell, and it's literally the same kind of idea, but there's this kid who summons a demon, and the demon is like, yes, my master, what can I do? And he's like, so I really like this girl. He's like, and I don't know what to say, and I don't know what to do. Like, what would you do? This demon's like... He's like a duke, the Archduke of Hell. Please, it's so funny. Like, I really like her though. Like, and she like. Please, you have to read it. It's so funny. That's wish upon. Like, one of the wishes, I wish my dad was cool and he's a stupid girl. Like, she's all demon. That's so funny. Using an all-powerful demon as an AI chatbot. We've come full circle. Yeah, but there's so much plot, but I can't reveal the plot. But I have to tell you, you have to watch it. You have to read it. It's so good. I think last time I checked, it had like, what? How many million reads did it have? $134? Look, let's be honest, you could be the 135th. Oh, the Great Duke of Hell. Sorry, not the Archduke. This, you have to read this. Read this, okay? Read that, okay? Read that. I bookmarked it. Okay. Could you just like start reading it now? Don't tell me what you think. Look, this is why Elisa's getting annoyed at me with Dispatch, okay? Look, I'm treating you the same way I'm treating Elise in Dispatch. Okay, cool, so how far are you? It's hard to tell if this is even focusing on me. I'll read it over your vacation. Okay, but it's gonna take you. It's gonna take you like a week, and I'm gone for more than that. So then after that, can you start reading Vampire Family? Urge to reread that to replace my social screen time. It's so damn weird. Just the thing. My God, do you know my favorite thing about the way that this author, the thing this author does is the way they write how people jump to conclusions. The way people jump to conclusions in that author's work is done to an art. To the point that everyone, even in the story, is like... Excuse me. Oh. Is this Korean? I don't think so. Oh my God, what's happening outside my house? Oh, my neighbour has like a loud delivery. But I bookmarked it. Please, it's yeah. You have no. If you wanted to read one that is in Korean, True Beauty, but I didn't. Queen, did you finish True Beauty? Thank you very much for gifting to Surreybot. Thank you. Hi, Rich Buzz. How are you? I think I finished the main story. There's also a TV show and novels. There's no way. There's no way. I think it was you, Queen, who told me that you finished the main story on Webtoon, and it was kind of like it took ages, and then at the end it was like anyway, and that's wrapped up. Do you all have Goodreads, or is that, or you just read books? I just read every so often, but some members of chat do actually use Goodreads. I only found out what Goodreads was a few days ago. Episode 7. Oh my god, are you reading it right now? Oh, Storygraph. Sorry. I am. Okay, isn't it great? Nice banana. How far through are you? My Vinted homepage is ruined. It's so ruined because I've been like looking for things like toys for Christmas presents. It's just like, it's full of crap. But like, I don't look at it anymore. I did, Theo. Thank you, yeah. I did put it on vacation mode, but yeah, it's just full of crap. My God. Now I'm like, Jesus Christ, some people's trying to sell like the apps, some absolute crap. Also, it makes me laugh when people are so impatient on Vinted. And I've never seen impatience like it. There was a patch that was on Vinted. And I was looking at it and somebody they listed it for £9. I'm paying £9 for a patch. I found it the day they listed it because I was like, oh, interesting. But then I was just like, whatever. And then the next day they reduced it to 8. And then 2 days later, they reduced it to 7. After a week, it got brought down to 4. I was like, Jesus. I could imagine dropping the price when it's not sold for like a week or so. Like, this isn't really like taking up a lot of space. The patience on that yeah, my God, they're so impatient on there. Oh my God, yeah, you're right. I could check it there. Well, is it in Hong Kong? I don't know. Do they have it in Hong Kong? Thanks, Rich. So I can feel less bad about playing Uber Simulator in 2077. I had something delivered to me and was chased for it within an hour, and I was like, I'm working. Oh my gosh. Okay, okay. No, I'm not sorry. I don't know what I was going to say. I'm so sorry. But like, I don't get how people don't think maybe they're at work as their first thing. Like, how are people like so odd? Thank you. that's what I don't get. Like, I just assume like, oh, like, you know, yeah, but they're probably working, or they might be at school. Like, you don't know, they might be at uni. They're probably doing something. I offered something on Vinted a few days ago to buy something, and it was like 2:30 in the morning. And I'm not joking, within a second it got approved. And I was like, oh, we're both just here looking at each other. You and I. We're just looking at each other. Do this out. Human is an odd creature, yeah. I've had that a few times. Yeah, it's within less than a second. Right, Carla, okay. Guess I'll pay for it then. Okay. I think I'm gonna stick my patches on my two-mater bag. Thank you very much, chat. I'm really excited about it. I think, because I've got some patches, so, and I was like, I don't know what to do with them, because sometimes you have like collector things and you don't really know what to do with some of them. Like, they just like stick around, you know what I mean? So I decided I decided I would put it on my two-mater bag, and I like sew it on there, so yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it, because like all of this, I got the stuff in the things. So I feel excited because now I'm like, oh god, I'm finally able to like use it. So a cop decided to walk in the middle of the street, startle, because I drove by them quickly, and forced me to escape the cops with a customer in my car. Thanks. NCPD. Night City. Oh my god, I was like, oh Kyle, I saved everything for later because otherwise, like, Amazon just leave it outside the door. Do you, Wesley? We did one yesterday. We did the like centipede thing. I don't know anything about wrestling. I'm doing fan service. But how are we to surprise you when you get back? That's okay. You can surprise me by turning up and making sure that making me realize that I haven't lost my job. I'll be here! Thanks, Tim. Zach, did I tell you Elise is playing Dispatch? She's so funny. I should ask her again. If she's played anymore. Let's ask her. Oh, wait, Zach, do you mean no William's done that in a while or like ever? Way back in the day, my sister almost bought something on eBay. She wanted me to look at it first because it seemed to be too good to be true. They were selling a £700 camera for 20 quid. Although the price kept going up as people bid more, I said, hold on, let me check. And my sister was getting annoyed with me because the price tag got to about 30 every 10 minutes. So I turned to her and said, you know, this is just the manual. Zero, can you reminded me, I forgot. People used to just sell like a picture of the products and they'd be like, and like in the small print, they'd be like, this is just the picture. I'm only selling a PNG. Yeah, it was really terrible, wasn't it? I think ever. That's so lovely, Zach. Did you read the comics as well? What time do you finish work? When dispatch? I did, but oh yeah, nice. Okay, cool. So yeah, you've got it. Okay, and then she has a red lip. Oh! I'm gonna go with a darker red because I think my complexion suits one slightly darker. Maybe it's too dark. I don't know. Wait, Punisher, I've forgotten which games were they? Did you mention them? Oh, that's gonna look too brown, I think. I'll have to go with the red. Ah, nice. Chat, I'm so sorry. I've turned on my sound. I can hear something like making a noise. It feels like. It's my camera. Oh. Turn it off, it's still making a noise. Can you hear it? It stopped. Okay. It's my wildlife camera, the garden. There's like a light hum. Mine wasn't a hum, it was like a high pitched. Oh yeah, that that'll do it. Because I've got my dressing gown on, it kind of looks like, you know, when she's been seen wearing the, like, big coat. Nerly V6. I haven't done my toiletries. On my makeup. Pretty obvious why. Wait, Zero, is your... Oh, wait, Zero, didn't you mention that your situation was changing a little bit? Does your brother help you now? That's nice, this is... Oh, I thought he was helping you. He does his own thing? Oh, I thought he was like... I thought I were helping you more. But he helps in his own way. You've mentioned a few things before. Do you think the way that he helps in his own way is helpful? And I hope that doesn't sound like a... Like shade. I'm just asking because you've mentioned a few things before. You know, I was gonna say... from things you've said, I'm not sure if that's what you really want to say. I don't think so. I didn't think it would be. Which, you know, it's not a laughing matter, but, you know, I'm glad we were able to deduce. I respect it a lot that you were working very hard to be very polite there. And I hope it doesn't come across that you're like, that you would think you've said too much. Not at all. I'm very grateful that, like, I feel like with some of you guys it's able to piece a few things together and be like, oh, okay. Pulls out the champion belt over there. I know, wait, isn't it funny? I've had this belt for like 2.5 years. Yanks bought it off my wish list. And I was like, I'm gonna do Asuka paints. And my chat was like, hell yeah! And then they were like, when are you doing that? And I was like, no, I don't know. Anyway, I just so happened yesterday to think, I'm going to do some WWE paints. And so thank God I had the belt. It's a children's belt. It's so tiny. Look at it. Little kid's belt. Little kid's belt. It's enough though. Anyway, yeah, he's finished the lock off really easily there. Damn. The picture I saw yesterday was just like, you turn it upside down and it's an M. I know, but when I say I know, but when I say MME, that just sounds like a different sport. Like the W in the WWE is such a mouthful that it feels right. MME just sounds like it's shortcut for a different sport, doesn't it? Is it size 3 to 4 months? Probably. Mortified that happened. I can't believe it. Do you know what? I can't believe that happened. Worse, I can't believe I managed to get into it. Yes, I cut it to shreds, but I got in. That's what I find to be most unbelievable. That was one of my favourite moments. When I held it up. Mortified, I couldn't believe it. I fully had that and was like, yeah, no problem, got this, ready to go whenever I do that. It's so funny, but the person, The whole situation. Yeah, I had it taped to myself within an inch of its life. Hey Hulk, how are you? Whoa, Peter, that's crazy. But then there's so many different belts now. I knew you'd figure it out. Yeah, when we had to, right? So this has to work. I don't know how it's gonna work, but it's got to work. We've got to figure it out. God, yeah. Terrible. But they lost the lawsuit to the World Wildlife Fund. I was gonna say, oh, no way, is that what happened? Because I used to say, I get confused between the panda, but I didn't realize, but I thought like, because I don't know anything about WWE, right? So I just presumed I kept getting the letter mixed up. I didn't realize that. Is that what it was? Because I must have, because I always thought like, yeah, when I was a kid, I got those two confused all the time. That's why you said a panda. Oh, I didn't understand. Oh, got you. Oh, I didn't realise. Got a less replica and it cost him 80 to 140. Is he a big fan? Live events, people will randomly do a Ric Flair, woo, and the whole stadium will do it back. Took my brother to a show and he convinced me to do it and I got up and screamed, oh my god, no! That's so silly. Thank you very much, Elise. Thank you. Yeah, we can't do pet names, I'm afraid. Here, UV. Please don't call me pet names. Oh my god, Fozzie, please. This has only ever happened once before. I did Sting's makeup look, and everyone was like, oh yeah, I'm something of a WWE fan myself. That's what I found out. My chat was full of wrestling fans, and I was like, because it was you guys like drip feed that quite a lot of you like Warhammer painting or miniature painting that gets drip fed quite a lot. I noticed there's a lot of people who like, and I figured that makes sense because I'm painting myself and people kind of see, right? Yeah, right, Queen. You lot wrestling, my god, you're so quiet until wrestling mentioned. Wrestling fans staying under the radar, yeah. But I'm a real belt and you can get the different plates for each wrestler. Oh, they did they change the plates? I didn't know that. I remember it going, yes, exactly, Hulk. That's why it's so funny. Maybe not this much. Is that because like Asuka's new? Maybe, I don't know. I don't know anything. I know nothing. And I hate the fact that I'm saying I don't know anything about wrestling and I look like this. I know. I know how it looks. I know. I know. If you're a wrestling fan, you kept it to yourself for fear of shame. Really? Oh my god. Is it like how people had to feel about Anna? Do you know what? No. I'm not saying... Anyway. No, that's not cool. That's so mean. Because, like, it's not fair. And the reason why it's not fair is because... that's happened with so many things. So many people have felt shame about liking certain things when they were younger because people would just be like, why can't you just be normal and do like me and like nothing? And people would have things that they were fandoms, that they were part of fandoms, and it's cool and it was nice and it's always been nice and fun. But now it's considered cool. So just because other people now are like, oh yeah, it's cool, but like it's always been like that. It's so mean, isn't it? It was rubbish. Like you had to like hide the fact that you had an interest in anything. Unless it was something like football. There was like a generic 10 things you could be interested in, and if you didn't like any of those and you liked something else, people were so weird about it. I wear my fandoms on my skin, as you should. The anime thing is becoming super normal now, but it really was shameful for so long. God, I remember being so ashamed of. I remember being really ashamed of like really liking Twilight, and people were so mean to me about it. It was so sad. What else did I really like? Video games. I felt like I couldn't admit I liked video games because so many people would be like, "Yeah, girl!" Oh, so annoying, man. What else did I really like? I mean, I hid the fact that I liked doing makeup for so long. Who cares what the norm is? Yeah, and do you know what? I think we know as kids that that's right, but it's hard to like act on it. That is so weird, Queen. Okay, but also that's another thing, because it's kind of like when people are like, I've never listened to K-pop, but they know all the words to Gangnam Style. You know when they're like, it seems like on their terms, but you have. And like, oh, I've never watched anime. I would never. And then you find out that they've watched Dragon Ball when they were a kid because it was on Cartoon Network. But that's an anime. It is, yeah, it really is. It's just so judgmental. It's so annoying. It's very hard to have the confidence to not care what other people think when you're young. Yeah, it's when you're a kid, it's really tough, isn't it? And I'm not saying, like Michael, that it's like futile at all. It's a good point. And now, as some of you guys mentioned that you feel like I live my life as in free will. Oh, thank you. I just think like everyone who told me that when I was younger was so right, but I was still so scared. I was so scared to just like have an interest. Like, God, can you imagine if I went feral at school for Tomb Raider? I'd never hear the end of it. Like it was just different. Dude, it's comic book. Dude, yeah. They're so rubbish. You seem to know a lot about this. I did have a Tomb Raider school bag. I did, yeah. For a while. When I went, that was in junior school, but I started caring a lot more when I was in like secondary school. Yeah, Warhammer did have a big stigma. Yeah, I remember that one as well. People telling me, I didn't know what Warhammer was when I was younger, but I remember that was a good one. I'm really struggling to, I feel like, can you tell recently, I feel like I'm like, my mind's not really, I'm not present. What else was there? I don't know, I feel like sports was the only one that seemingly was acceptable. It's such a good thing. And this is why I always love the MCU. I'm glad it's become mainstream. Oh my God, Zero, you're so right. Sorry, I'm so out of it. I'm glad it's become mainstream. I suppose, if anything, I just wish that there was an acknowledgement of like, yeah, it wasn't cool before when we made fun of people. You know what I mean? Instead of, because it feels like there's a denial around it. That's the thing that I don't like. Is there seems to be some kind of like denial about how people were treated who liked it. And I don't want like everyone to suddenly apologize to me. Yeah, I just want the acknowledgement of like, yeah, people used to be like this and we would think that before and it wasn't right. I think I just want the acknowledgement of that. I don't want an apology really. I just want like, yeah, then it wasn't fair really. That's all I just kind of wish would come from it. Yeah, they pretend like it wasn't a huge issue or that it didn't happen. Oh my God, Peter, that's crazy. When you said snake bite, I thought you meant the drink. Hearing kids talk to their parents about Pocky and Mochi and anime, like it's felt so nice, and seeing it in cinemas. Yeah. Normalize being into more geek stuff, yeah. British name primary school, I'm sorry. Used to send belts to football clubs who won the country's league championship. Really? That's so weird. Yeah, Punisher. Just be like, yeah, it wasn't cool when we made fun of people for like liking comic books and stuff, but like, yeah, cool. Anyway, now everyone likes the MCU and it's cool. I don't mind. That's fine. You like everyone can like it. It's just like, yeah, but you can't. But don't lie about the fact that people were mean about this. Like, okay, Cosplay. Cosplay's one. There is like a hair that's tickling me. Cosplay, oh my god, I got ripped to shreds for cosplay. There was this one person who was like, who I look back and we weren't really best friends. I think I just tolerated her. And I remember that I used to upload like pictures of me and Lara Croft, and I never thought anything of it because I thought it was fun and I thought it was cool. And then she was just like, oh, all you ever do is Lara Croft. Like, you always dress up as Lara Croft. Why can't you ever do anything different? Blah, 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 blah. It's so boring. Like, why do you always do that? And I'm like... Oh, God. I wonder why. And then I started being more... active, like painting myself as different characters and doing cosplays and stuff, like with paint. And God, they were like, why is this such a waste of time when you should have been like hanging out with people like me and all of this crap. And it was at that point, but like it had gone on for years. And I remember it being at that point that I was just thought to myself, like, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. And so I was too chicken to say something about it. So I just kind of like tried to put the distance between us because I was too scared to be like to call it out, because they often used to say like, oh, it's just because I'm so witty, and I used to hate that because they'd be nasty but they'd pretend it was wit. That's not the same, but they would excuse it. So I just decided in the end it would be better to slowly distance ourselves. And then we went on we had this like day where like she was in London and so was I, and she wanted to meet up, and like we were talking and I could see it in her eyes. There was nothing that we had in common. We had nothing to talk about, and like I would be like, so yeah, thinking of going to, I'm gonna go to Japan for a while. I think I'm just gonna go there and do like a year or something. And then she'd just be like, but like why? And I'd be like, and I just thought to myself like, why does it matter? Do you know what I mean? When you kind of think. And I remember we were walking around and I just was like, this is the last time I'm ever going to see this person, ever. And I felt so at peace with that idea. And then when I walked away, I was, at the end of the day, I was just like, I'm so glad. And then I think they sent me messages on Instagram, but you guys know I don't go through that, saying that she misses me like 2 years later, and I just ignored it. I was just like, no. Like, she used to do things like, we'd be in the Disney shop, and I always went to the Disney. I used to always go to the Disney shop immediately after Christmas, so I could check the Nightmare Before Christmas stuff to see if it was on sale. And I remember she specifically said, I'm sorry, I know I'm neglecting chat. I'll revisit it in a second. And I remember her saying like, you just pretend to like this stuff because you think it makes you cool, but liking this creepy stuff doesn't make you cool at all. About Jack Skellington? You said that about Jack Skellington! You take it back! You take it back right now! And I remember just thinking like, you don't know me as a person, like you don't actually like me. Oh. Right, where was I in the chat? Sorry. I only gave one to Sadiq Khan, but it was the kids one. Oh, so cute though. I remember having to go to video game stores and buy a random anime to try. Downloaded anime on a 56k modem, was not an option on the family computer. Aww. I had a best friend like that too, toxic humans. But like, as an adult, you realise you're only friends because you were near each other and you could like, you had time to hang out with each other, but you don't really we weren't really friends. Friends will ask about MCU stuff and I'll be like, if I start answering, you can't make me feel weird about knowing all of this. Oh, that's so sad, Michael. It's so annoying, isn't it? But then again, right, it's refreshing to come to spaces like mine. I like Discord and stuff where I can be like, oh yeah, Scarlet Witch, and you can be like, yeah. And it's normal. Because it's like in the community, do you know what I mean? Heaven forbid you want to have a role model. Heaven forbid that you just like something. I mean, she could dress up as anyone she wants. Right, Megan, like, what's it got to do with her? Lara Croft and boring do not sit in the same sentence. The People can be so nasty with things like, I'm sorry, Lara Croft interests me and not you. I don't like being friends with people who are so nasty about things like same witchy. And I didn't get that when I was younger. And I'm glad that I understand now how much like you should not listen to that. It's just banter. No, it's not. It's yes, exactly. Oh my God. Do you sometimes see that in like other people's relationships too? Where they're like, where you can see like, they're kind of bullying each other and you can see one of them is getting upset and it's really awkward. And you're a bit like, and they're like, ah, yeah, but you know, like, we're just joking. Okay. Well, Lara's hotter, slightly dodgy cousin. Also, I really, really like that typo that you've done there, more. Doughy. Her doughy cousin. Red. I'm glad you had that few moments, same. It was weird. It was weird. I've never felt that before, but I was just like, it's done. Like, I felt like I closed a book. There's a story that's been turned into a cartoon series where they featured an incident that took place hours before the snake bite thing, where Macho Man wanted Jake the Snake Roberts to have his snake bite him before he allowed it to bite him in the show. Terrifying, the incident, but the telling of the story was funny, so interesting. Whoa! Oh my God, I don't know. I don't think I'd ever want to be bitten by a snake, you know? My last with a toxic best friend was going to a barbecue and turning it right as she told everyone about my very new relationship I'd asked her not to tell anyone about, and she just pretended like it was no biggie to spread shit about me. Whoa. Queen, that's crazy. Thank you very much, Anna. Yeah, no problem, Zero. If I don't see you, have a good one. Yeah, wait, it's gonna be fun. Some people say that banter is part of British culture. It is, but there's like a line. There's definitely a line with it. Banter to me is very much like, kind of how I treat a lot of you lot. I wouldn't bully you, right? But like when Queen's like, oh, says something about, if Queen was to say something, I don't know, about like airports and stuff, and I'd be like, you'd know all about that, wouldn't you? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like that sort of silly thing, but it's not bullying, because like, there's a line. No one I know IRL plays video games, and when they find out I play video games, they always say like a thing is for kids or for men. Oh my God, striking, that's gross. They absolutely change how they act around me if they find out I play video games. Well, striking, it's so weird though, like, these are adults. That's what I don't get. Oh my God, Queen. Do you know what? That's the first thing that popped into my mind that I forgot to say. Is like, yeah, okay, they hate video games, but you know full well they played Candy Crush until level 500. You know full well they did. But like, I hate that as well in the way that people don't classify like mobile gaming as gaming. But you're playing a game, so you're a gamer, that's it. End of story. Any other Halo diehards? I like a mix of things. I play quite a lot of variety. I quite like adventure games. I like Tomb Raider and Tomb Raider and Tomb Raider and Tomb Raider. Sometimes I like a puzzle game. Sometimes I like a shooty game. Sometimes I like a good co-op game. Sometimes it just depends really. Like the horror game. Lara Croft Go was so stressful. There was some of those levels which would so hard. I'm lucky to be surrounded by like-minded people throughout school, so someone gaming was normal for me. Gaming was normal for me with certain people. I found a group who also play games. I know what you mean. Yeah. Oh my God, there were some levels which you'd just be like, there's no way. It's not possible. It's not possible. Yeah, exactly right. You just enjoy it. But I do think it's nice that we're able to find communities like what we have here, and then it's normal to talk about. And I walked into a pub where the regulars started having a playful go at me, and I gave it right back to him, and he just laughed, nodded, and left me alone. Yeah, that's the kind of banter that I think is to be expected when it comes. But Carl, I'm sure you'd understand. I'm sure you'd agree. If he did it like once more, you'd be like, that's a bit weird. If he did it again, then it's too far. But like just, mentioning, if he came to talk to you, it's different. But at first you just be like, "Aye," and then you just kind of, you know, carry on and be like, "Oh." It's the same way of like, if somebody drops a glass in a restaurant or in a pub in the UK, everyone goes, "Eh!" And then like it gets cleared up and then everyone's forgotten about it. It's more like like that kind of a thing in the moment, but like if you would, oh, right, exactly right, Carl. That's what I mean. Like that's the kind of like level of banter that I think is normal for Brits. Like you'd mention something and just be like, "Oh yeah," and then just move on from it. Like he's totally forgotten. You've forgotten. It's gone. But it's not mean. That's the thing. As it would just kill the battery. I need my phone for more important things. I feel the same, V6. I also didn't like how I was kind of like looking at my phone as much all the time. I prefer to play a mobile game on an iPad. Anything on TV that I haven't seen 1,000 times already. Shock horror that you want to play video games. The best part of New York is you can be in a crowd of people and still not be perceived. Dropped a glass, no one is looking at you, don't worry. Oh yeah, no. Yeah, the UK is like, everyone saw that. Everyone forgot about that. That's what it's like in the UK. They don't cheer to relieve the social awkward. Yeah, it does feel like that. People are like, yeah, I just feel like it's like a, so people don't think, oh! It's kind of, yeah, you kind of break something and you think, oh Christ, and then everyone's cheering and you're like, okay. Yeah, we're all right. Fair enough. Might help you clean it up, but they will get annoyed if you stop them from doing their business to thank them. Interesting. It's interesting. Not so bad after all. Look at us. Look at us. Look at us. Right. Let me have a quick... I feel like I should put the contact lenses in. I don't really want to, but I should. What I'm going to quickly do then, chat, in that case, is... I'm cleaning up glass here! Sorry, I think I didn't realise I was, like, imitating the, like, New York, I'm walking here thing. I asked Elise if she has any more thoughts on Dispatch, and she says, no, I don't come up with new stuff every day. And then she's told me that she keeps looking up fan art. So you are. You are thinking about it. You are thinking about it. So she's like sending me some of the pictures she's been finding. And still Tori's is so funny. I helped the Taurus find her way, and she was like, oh, by the way, thank you. And I was like, okay, you're welcome, bye. And then she was like, I'm coming from, and I was like, please, I can't stay, but bye, enjoy New York. Okay, goodbye. Okay, bye, though, bye. Suck the chocolate. That's kind of funny. Suck the chocolate. Oh, wait, Michael, it was you. You said earlier about how you did the woo thing and then nobody did the woo thing. Absolutely mortified. When it's not that bad. It wasn't as big of a crowd, right? But when I was in the US and I had finished and I was about to host a panel, somebody in front of me was like, "Hey, oh my God, I'm from England. Are you from England too?" And I was like, "Hell yeah! 0800 00." And then he went, "Go on." And I was like, "No, you." "No, you do the thing." And he was like, "You do it." And I was like, 1066. Oh my God. God, I'll never do that again. What do you mean? oh my God, Queen. I was like, I haven't heard that one in a while. Yeah, there's that one. And I like auto gloss repair, auto gloss. And I was just like, I thought to myself, like, is it me? Is it me? It must be me. Queen. It's not me. I was like, these are like really annoying adverts, by the way. These are adverts. 0800 00 1066 is a phone number for an insurance company, I think. And like, because they were like, oh, the Battle of Hastings, blah, 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 1066. And they used to advertise it that way. And then there's the TV advert used to go 0800 00 1066, and that's how everyone knows the phone number. And then the other one was a brand, auto gloss repair, auto gloss replace, and like people started like remixing it, being like zoom, 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 zoom. And then now it's just become part of British culture to be like, oh yeah, I've heard that advert loads of times, so have I, we've all heard it, it's ingrained into us. So in a crowd of people, you can find out who's English by going like 0800 00, and then somebody will be like 1066. And like, so when this guy was like, oh my God, you're English, and I was like, hell yeah, and I was like, 0800 00, and he just stared at me and asked me to finish the song, and I was like, guys, you buy one, you get one free. I said you buy one. It's so stupid. I have no idea what yeah, it was the Battle of Hastings in 1066. Yeah, I think it must have just been an English thing. I can't imagine you'd have that in Scotland. Honestly, it's so bad. Even I think that now. I'm like, I said you buy one. Have you seen Asuka's new makeup? No. Well, actually, I might have done. My chat were amazing and filled my Discord with loads of ideas. I would like to do all of them. But I'm just doing a quick makeup look today because I'm going on holiday tomorrow, so I need to like finish packing, etc. But I was gonna do another one today, but I kind of need to like tidy this room up. My daughter knows none of these because we never watch TV, so, oh no, because I'm guessing you don't listen to radio either, because they used to be on the radio. Autogloss uses different jingles in each country, so you know where they're from. For us, it's Safe Light Repair. No way! Safe Light Repair, Safe Light Replace. What's the Just Eat in Australia? Because they sang a song about it and I was so confused. Morning, Gonora, how are you? You'll make it look better. Thank you. I'm trying to go through a bunch of Asuka's makeup from wrestling. This is me. I'm a wrestler now. I know nothing about wrestling. So I wanted to do one of her more simple ones today because thank you so much. Thank you. I know nothing about wrestling either. Yeah, no, I got a clue. I've learned new words. Venora, we were talking about your frope the other day. God, that sounds really inappropriate. Sorry. We were talking about your frog pope the other day, about how we really, that's my favorite hat. Out of all the hats that you have, the pope hat, the pope hat hits harder than the others. I say like, yeah, it's really funny we were talking about it because I was basically like, you have such interesting pets. I'd never be brave enough to like hold a frog because I have this thing about like insects and like, I know a frog is not an insect, but about insects and like certain animals where like I feel like I couldn't touch it. But I can't look away when you're holding this frog. And then when you were holding it the other day and you were like, yeah, like if it bites me right now, like that's it. And I was like, it can bite! What do you mean it can bite? And so I was just like, I'm usually here like afterwards and I've raided and I'm like, hell yeah. And then you bring out the frog and then I just can't look away and I'm usually like, he has teeth. Yeah, I had no idea they had teeth. I thought they were just like Yoshi, like, blah, blah. You know what I mean? But like, I guess, ultimately I don't know enough about frogs, but yeah. Definitely no reptile pets. No, I didn't know you had a cat as well though. Thank you very much for the hijack. The chat told me you had a cat. I didn't realise you had a cat. So wait. You've got a frog. And then you have a cat. What other animals do you have? Wait, frogs can bite you? Ignore it. Ignore it, chat. It's fake. Fake train, go home. Wait, right, Carl, don't you find that sometimes you learn something about an animal and you think, well, okay, new fear. For lizard, a tarantula. and 2. Oh, you got 2 new baby frogs. What have you? Wait. Actually, better question. Sorry, Venora. What are they all called? What names have you? Miso and Wonton. Okay. Dumpy white tree frogs. Got you. Okay, so that's Miso and Wonton. Okay, yeah. And it's 4 lizards. But these are separate to your cat and your big frog. Is the big frog a bullfrog? I'm naming my next dog Meat Moob and no one can stop me this time. Who stopped you last time? So lizards are Shappa, Aeon, Tangerine. When you spell tangerine, does it always have the exclamation mark as part of the name? Because please, I hope so. Tarantula is... Yeah, and the black cat is Tony. Wow, you got the names right. Venora, I had somebody in chat tell me that their cat was called the same thing as your tarantula, and nobody corrected me for about 6 months that I kept calling it Persephone. And I was like, Persephone, oh, how's Persephone today? Persephone's watching too. So nice. And then somebody was like, isn't it Persephone? And I was like, what are you talking about? Never deserving you so much, thank you. Never mind, my next dog is Persephone. Les Banana, when do you hope to get another dog? He is an adopted rescue. Abandoned 3 times! I had a dream, not last night, the night before, that I got a cat. I did it the same way and got laughed at. Yeah, my God, yeah. Yeah, it's that and so crates. Which made me even more annoyed because I have a friend whose boyfriend is called Socrates, and I didn't realize because she always called him Socks. So I never heard that pronounced. I've only heard so great. So great. After a few months, lightly got you. Completely understandable. So I was so annoyed, and I was so annoyed at her, even though I hadn't spoken to her at that point in like 4 years. And I was thinking, I was like, oh. You could have taught me. The great Greek philosopher's Socks. Yeah, that's what she calls him, Socks. So I was like, Socks. Sometimes she spells it with an X. S-O-X. She's like, oh, I don't know, I'll ask Socks. And I'll be like, okay. Socrates. I fully went in on the Socrates. The thing is, I'm like, oh, I'll never live it down, but it's because I'm the one who keeps bringing it back up. Bye, Kyle. Not sure if you'll be streaming when I get back. Probably not. I just want to wish you and go fantastic well hello, miss you. Go see when you get back. Looking forward to the PowerPoint. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a good day. It's my tongue still. Okay. It's okay. Could be better. I've been doing some more like transition videos. The ones where I paint my tongue, and then we had so many takes this morning, unfortunately. And after every take I have to like wash this like paint off my tongue. And it was sore. Sore, to put it lightly. Right, chat. Okay, let's do something productive. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go have a quick pee break, and then I'm going to put the contact lenses in. We're going to come back here, and then at least you know your tongue is clean. I can't stand the... Do you know, I don't know about you, but if I have like any dirt on my tongue, I feel like I can sense it. And I'm like, ew. Ugh. And then I'll take my photos and videos, and then we'll start packing up the like makeup and such. and then I'll tidy the studio up, and then I'll dip out. Okay? Okay, pee break time, pee break, pee break, pee break, pee break, pee break, pee break. An owl break. Okay. A hibiscus tea. That sounds nice. Okay, this feels close enough, I think. Bye, Snowball. Okay. That feels close enough to me. Oh my god, Retro, don't forget the lurkers too. The lurkers look great today. Can't forget our lurkers. Right, let me get some like quick footage and stuff. Ghosty! Ghost has just gone to send you your coffins. Running in no time. I had to send you like a threat. I had to send you an extra one because it failed almost at the end. But honestly, I was looking at it and I left a note with it too. I think you can just cover it in moss or something. Like a decoration thing. Yeah, so I was like, it's nearly finished. We might as well give it to you anyway. Yeah, so I think just cover it with something. The belt. Yeah, because it's like a children's one. Okay, that's good enough for me. Yay. Okie dokie. Okay, chat, let's sort the studio out and pack my makeup bag, ready to go. Camera shy. The good news is I've got some stuff to add to my wish list when I come back. I'd like to organise like my balloons and stuff because I realised one of the massive issues was that I was keeping them in a box that kind of, it's too small, so it's making it really difficult for me to like put in and out of the loft. So we can organise that. So then you guys can stop telling me off that I'm not putting enough on my wish list. Okay, so that's up there, and then Doomskull is there. Doomskull? Doomslayer is over there. Blink twice if you need help. I see no large, but I've taken everything off because it'll get delivered while I'm away, and that's bad. That would be bad, not good. So my wish list is empty. Now. You're going somewhere? Yeah. I'm going on holiday. Thank God. No, I forgot to pack away my microphone toy. Put it here. In the meantime. What was I gonna put? Oh, I was gonna get the dirty brush box. That needs to be recycled. Will you go to the plane with paint? No, and they're funny about things like that as well because of like face scans and stuff for security. Trust me. But I'd also just want to be comfortable, so it's a no from me. Some of these could be cleaned before I go, to be honest. I'm going on holiday tomorrow, but I need to finish packing. Today is my last stream. You'll make a fuss at the airport. Have you tried just for fun? No, that sounds like a very terrible idea. I've seen other people say that, well, the thing is like when I've tried to get into things like casinos and my face has been, I don't even want to say painted. I don't even think it was been that bad. They just won't let you in for security reasons. Like I stood outside once and like took all my makeup off to go in, and then I went in for 10 minutes, found it boring and left. Yeah, it's just not worth it. Where am I traveling to? I'm going to Hong Kong and Malaysia. We're gonna see Ghost's family. And then in Malaysia, we're gonna have just some time to have a holiday. I'm really excited. Because I haven't had like a big holiday like that in a long time. Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's gonna be a lot of fun. I just, I got told off by my therapist, big time, because basically in the last like 2.5 years, I've taken off like a week and a half, I think, as a break. And she was like, you don't take bank holidays, you barely take your weekends. When you're taking off your weekends, you're doing work around the house. She's like, that's not relaxing. You haven't had a break at all. She was like, most people get some kind of annual leave. They have a few days off in the year. They have bank holidays, and you haven't given yourself any of that, and you're not even taking weekends. You need to have more breaks. And so I got fully roasted, which is fair. Everything she said was fair. I just didn't like hearing it, if I'm honest. And so new goal for this year is so we came to the conclusion every 3 months, I need to like either take a long weekend, I need to do something to actually have a break. Like, okay, it's the quarterly break. It's different this year because I like going away in January, because January is the quieter time for me with regarding things like work with companies. So it's easier to go away then, and it's usually a bit quieter on Twitch as well, which is fine. So it works out because I don't really like the winter anyway. As in, like, it makes me sleepy, it makes me a bit moody. And the interesting thing is that I haven't been burnt out from doing makeup. I've been burnt out from dealing with people on socials. That, I think, is where I burnt out, which is why I don't think I really realized I was burnt out, because I actually wasn't burnt out doing this. It's no problem. But I grew more and more and more resentful about my social media. If it just wasn't for all these people. And so or maybe I could just put a bunch of stuff in here and then bring that. Yeah, so ultimately now, because I'm going away for such a long time in January, which I'm looking forward to, the only thing is, normally it would be like a week or like a 2-week break. But in July, I need to go away for a while as well. So I'm thinking well, it's kind of looking now that I'm going to get like a break in May, whether I like it or not, which is fine. But that's quite nice. And then I'll probably do something. I was thinking like maybe November-ish. Are you away for just over 3 weeks? Yeah, right. I never thought that either, zombies. But like, you've probably seen it where like, I'm talking about something and you can see people are trying to be quite aggravating in a way. And I think I'm not interested in really hiding it as much anymore, but I'm just like, no, no. And so that's the thing that I get frustrated with in the long run, is like, I mean, please know though, I have taken steps to stop it. Like, Theo combs through my comment sections and makes sure that they're all clean now, because they got bad. Like, they got really bad. I ended up taking most of October off work. I mean, honestly though, Zach, with what you do as well, yeah, so valid. Everyone, but yeah, I think yours to me sounds especially really tough. We all need breaks. Yeah, and I got massively told off. But my breaks was like, I'm really grateful. Please don't get me wrong. I'm really grateful because my socials grew a lot. Oh, thanks, Zach. Anyway, I'm leaving. No, I'm just kidding. My socials grew a lot, and I always knew it would happen, but I don't think I realized quite how bad it was going to happen. Like, so my socials grew, but so did my hate comments. And when I mean my hate comments, it got to a point where you couldn't ignore it, because every day it was bad, and I was getting more and more and more frustrated. People would come for things. They would come for things about me, which those ones don't really hurt me in general anyway. I find it confusing that they say that, but like, they'd come for other stuff too. Like, as an example, I would paint a character who's black. Like, the art, like, you know what I mean? Like like Prism. Like when I painted like a portrait of them, and and that, to me, the stuff that people would say, made me feel physically sick. And so I would have to like, No, they're just racist. Like they're fully racist. But there's people who, there was the most, I've genuinely in the last 2 years, I've seen some of the most racist, misogynistic, just people were accusing me of trying to make inappropriate content for children because the Thundercats is a cartoon and I've done a body paint, therefore I'm trying, you see what, that level. And it was just like, oh my God, like, and I'm sure for anyone, like that's something that you can be like, oh, that's so silly, that's so far-fetched. And I agree with you, but like, obviously when it's different when it's like at you and people are doing it all the time, it's different. So it got bad, but now I've taken steps to stop that. To stop me from seeing that, which is my moderators go through my socials to clean them up because I don't want to see them anymore. I just don't want to know. I don't want to know what people are saying. I don't want to see it. So, and I think, honestly, I know it sounds silly, but like, whatever. At the end of the day, that makes a job for somebody, doesn't it? Like, it makes it. But it shouldn't be happening in the first place. But yes, that's why I was like, I can't take this anymore. I don't want to look. Interesting, that's where oh no, you're totally fine. That's where I burn out. I didn't realize, because I always expected to burn out from not wanting to do painting. Right, Lesbinada, exactly. I just fully thought I'd burn out from streaming or from painting myself, and I never did, so I was like, I'm fine. But I didn't realize I'm so burnt out from trying to handle the comment sections. And like the talking, it's not normal that like I would go live, right? And talk to like 100 people in a day. That's not really a normal thing that people do, which I don't mind, and that's fine. That's completely fine, I understand that. But that is quite tiring in itself, and I don't mind. But then what happens, which was pointed out by my therapist, was like, sometimes offline, I don't want to talk to anyone, so I just stop replying to people. And then people get annoyed at me that I'm not replying, but also I'm kind of like, it's not my problem. But it's because I'm tired of like talking, and it's not that I hate anyone, it's just that I'm done talking for a little bit. I just want to be left alone, which again I think is very fair. But that's where I start getting tired. That's where I get tired. That's where I get burnt out. But I didn't realize before that it was that. So I was just like paint. I love painting. I love streaming. But that's where I start getting tired. But yeah, a lot of the hate comments were like another level. I felt they're just like a completely other level of like, I just can't comprehend how people can be so gross. But then I do think a lot of it is bots. That's really important as well. I think a lot of it is bots, but it's hard to tell what's a bot and what isn't. So I don't really take it too personally, because I'm like, that's weird, like that website's weird or whatever. But now I've got steps to be like, I don't see it anyway, it doesn't matter. Which I'm really grateful for. I'm really grateful that the mods are so helpful. Boss and children, sometimes I have to remember that they're middle schoolers voicing their opinions. Yeah, do you know, a lot of the time as well, a lot of it would be children who have like gotten access to like their parents' account and stuff. Opinions. They just spout some of the most stupid stuff. But yeah, but I'm not out here to like get into an argument with a 13-year-old on the internet. That's not the life I want to live. I don't want to live that. Yeah. So it gets cleaned out now, which is a lot better. And anyway, so my goal this year is every quarter I have to take a break. Which I think will be easier now that I've mostly finished a lot of the big work on my house. I did a big house renovation. So a lot of the time my weekends are like, oh yes, I'll just go repaint that. I'll just go I'll go do this and I'll go, I don't know, install the skirting board on the gym. So you see what I mean? Like my weekend's always been hectic. Oh my God, I tiled the floor, I did the laminate flooring, I painted the house, yeah, we basically did everything, right? So it was tricky, and I haven't really been taking off my weekends. My weekends were like, okay, cool, so now I have time to, I don't know, lay the flooring in the garage. Which again, you know, is silly, but like that's what I would be doing. And that's not really a break, is it? So I got told off. Oh no, one of my remover things have leaked and it's on the table. What did I call that? Anyway, I'll wipe it off. And so that's why I'm under strict instruction to have a break every 3 months. I don't argue with people on social media. Very likely it's just a disinformation bot. Yeah. The way that I was discussing this with somebody, which I think you guys will find is very fair, is the reason why it's difficult not to, like, is because a lot of what I do, it's aimed at me, isn't it? Like, the hate comments are aimed at me, which, again, whatever, fine. I think it's natural that you'd want to stick up for yourself. But then you're interacting with it. But then what? So I just take it? So I just let people say all this stuff about me? So can you see the, like, that's where I get stuck. I want to stick up for myself, but then I'm feeding into it. And that's where I fell, really. I think that's where I hit a wall with it. Because I'm like, it's not there. Everyone's like, just ignore it. But like, you'd want to stick up for yourself too. Go wash the back of your arms. Yeah, Punisher, somebody told me that it's not possible that I paint myself because humans can't touch the back of their own arms. And everyone was like, wow, way to admit you've got really bad personal hygiene. We were all like, he's like, nobody can, but it's the way that he said nobody can touch the back of their own arms. That's what I didn't get. Like, some people, yeah, maybe they've got like a frozen shoulder or something. You know what I mean? Different. Nobody. I think it means most people are jealous. I mean, to be honest with you, I've tried seeing it that way. It doesn't take away the hurt. It hurts. And the only way I can really fully try and get people to comprehend is some of my videos have hit 7 million viewers. And not all those people are going to comment. Imagine 1 million comments about why you're the worst. And it's coming in through your notifications. Those people that, like, that one video is not good enough, they'll go for your other videos too. Like, it's so bad. Like, that seeing it as like, oh, they're just jealous. It just doesn't, it's not enough. So I get what you're saying, but like, when you've been through it, it's where it's rough. And I'm grateful that I've clearly got thick enough skin that I'm still doing what I'm doing. But I'm also very grateful that I've got amazing moderators and they want to help me. It's the man that's done it too because women can't be that good. Yeah, I've had that before as well. People shave their armpits, right? Need someone to beat them up. Get them, Zach. When you see people who hang out with you, only to hang out. Sorry, I'm so sorry. I've read this wrong twice. When you see people who hang with you, only hang with people who talk badly about you. Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? Nobody can touch the back of their knees. Nobody? A sea of mean children, it's brutal. Yeah, exactly. And look, I love what I do. Don't get me wrong. I love my job. I really, really do. But yeah, it's been difficult in some situations. Or like, I would just say something like, oh, you know, if you've got nothing nice to say, please don't say anything. And they'll be like, wow, she can't take any criticism at all. Like, look at her. What a horrible comment. And like, obviously you're just like, what the hell? What are you talking about? I've just said like, you know, please be nice. Oh my God. And so if I respond to the comments and I say, this isn't nice, we should be better. People are like, you should be ignoring this sort of stuff. Why are you just posting negative stuff on your socials all the time? If I respond to them in the comment section, it starts an argument and then they just manage to, and then it gets worse and then it just doesn't help. If I ignore it, then I feel like I'm letting people be mean about me. So my solution to it all was have one of my moderators who volunteered to do it, give them some money, and they just keep an eye on my socials and they go through all the comments and they just delete and block, delete, block, delete, block, delete, block, delete, block. I don't want to see it anymore. I don't want to see it. I don't want it there. My socials as well, because another thing that you mentioned, the snowball effect, is when they see one person be mean, they see it as like an invite for like, oh, we can all be mean. So then they see it as like, oh, hell yeah, that's great. Let's all do that too. So they all jump onto it, which is why I noticed that like a year ago, and I was like, it's almost like you have to get rid of the mean comments really quickly. So yeah, Theo has just like combs through it, and just deletes it all. And I found that to so far be the best solution, because people get deleted or they get blocked and I don't see it. Excuse me. Oh my God. It is weird behavior. Yeah, it's weird. And I also just think like, I don't get why people would do it in the first place. But that's where I burnt out. That's where I started being like, this is really hard. And I didn't realize that I was burnt out this whole time, but in a different area of my job. I just didn't really like compute it. You know what I mean? I was just like, no, I still feel fine. I still want to do makeup. But I didn't quite realize that was the other bit that I just didn't like anymore. Where's my makeup bag? I think they do it to make them feel better about themselves, which is ironic really, isn't it? Because I know from experience, you'll feel better about yourself if you just start being nice to other people and just being a nice person in general. But like, yeah, they try and like tear other people down, which is never gonna lift themselves up. But it's, yeah, it's strange. But whatever the reason, I don't want to see it anymore. I mean, look. Look. I've been making makeup videos for 16 years on the internet. That's a long time to be making makeup videos. That's a long time. I've had a lot of hate comments in my day. In my time, I feel like I've seen it all, and I'm tired. So now I'm in a different position than I was 16 years ago. I have someone who can happily take them out and delete it all for me. And I think that's a really, really great solution. Yeah, I did. Yeah, somebody, yeah, I can't remember what film that was. Somebody said something and I replied and was like, why would you say something like that? And they were like, oh, I didn't think you actually read the comments. Look at my makeup bag, chat. Isn't that the coolest thing ever? Okay. We need powder. I need it! There was another one, but it wasn't. It was a claw machine. So cute. It was in Japan, and I learned a really good place to look for funky stuff like that was in the magazine section at the bottom where they had free stuff with the magazine. That was where, because the claw machine one was a Sega one, and I saw it and was like, that's really cool, but like I didn't really want it, but I thought it was really cool. So if you ever go, check the magazine section and see what's free with them, because sometimes they offer like bags and stuff, and that's where I found this sort of stuff. You have some of those Japanese magazines in Singapore as well. Oh, they're cool. Did you get some free stuff in them? Yeah, it was a cool Sega one. It wasn't for me, but I was like, damn, that's really cool. Okay, I'll bring my lip balm. I'll bring my contour. Is there a lot left in this one? Oh, it's bubbled at the top. No wonder I couldn't see. Oh. I think that's okay. I think so. Should I just bring a new one? I'm probably not going to wear foundation for all of the trip because it's going to be hot in some places, so I think it's fine. My new favorite lip gloss, let's bring that with me. I should bring my setting spray. Take that one and a new one just in case. You're the reason why people carry heavy bags. Hi, Meg, how are you? My under eye color corrector. This, I swear by this. I clearly need it right now, but I swear by. Well, it looks like this, but I swear by that under my eyes. Do I have a drugstore foundation that I would like to recommend? I used to, and then they discontinued it. Are you looking for, what kind of thing are you looking for? Like a full coverage? Haven't done it in years because I have the ordinary lightweight. I only know the thick one. My issue with some of the drugstore ones is that some of them smell industrial. You know what I mean? They don't smell right. There's something, yeah, there's a stench to them, isn't there? And they smell cheap. And I don't like because it feels like I'm just putting chemicals and chemicals and chemicals. And I know, but like, they're like unrefined. But no, I don't have an idea. Make the chemicals smell nice at least, exactly. Yeah, no, I don't know of a drugstore. Actually, let me have a quick look at the one and let me see if I've tried one. Let me see. Boot. Superdrug really, isn't it? Going to the store and thought I might find something there. Let me have a quick look at different brands. Not recognizing that I've tried any of these ones. Oh my god, showing 1 to 60 of 964. Liquid foundation. Apply filters. Against me, because if I like it, they discontinue it. NYX are the worst for that, in my opinion. My big thing is lip balm. I have a few different types that I like. Yeah, lip balms, godsend sometimes, aren't they? It's just a bit of skincare. Cool. Oh man, I think it's it's Asuka from wrestling. No, sorry, Asuka. I keep getting the name wrong. Yeah, I haven't tried any of these to be able to recommend them to you, to be honest, Theo. The one that I'm interested in is the MUA Makeup Academy Pro Base. And the reason why is because I think that one's meant to be a dupe for another one, but I don't remember. I remember seeing it and thinking like, huh. That's the only one which I'm seeing that, and I think so. I've got some kind of recognizable. I kind of prefer now to use a foundation that's a bit higher priced, and then not because it's high priced, and then I'm happy to stinge out on the other stuff. Sorry, which one? The Makeup Academy one, the MUA Makeup Academy Pro Base. Can I? Oh, sorry, this picture's just come up. This smells so bad. Do not buy that one. The IRL filter, it's awful. When you see me like applying a foundation to my arms when I'm doing a paint, that's the one I'm using. And I use that to use it up. Okay, and then eyebrow pencils. Ooh, that one's nearly finished. Let's get a couple new ones. Our foundation's liquid form. They can be powder. They can be liquid. They can be a balm. They can be powder. There's loads of ways that you can do foundation. From my understanding, a good way to cream sticks. Yeah, but from my understanding, there's interesting ways that you can combine them as well if you're trying to do something specific. When I had really like deep set acne scars, it was interesting. One of the things that they recommend was you use a foundation and then you use a powder foundation, and it really helps to hide them. I know people are like, because you're filling them in, but like makeup doesn't really work like that, but it would disguise it interestingly, I thought. They can be, they're the concrete foundations. I have a red nose rosacea, and sometimes I use a liquid makeup, like a skin color. Yeah, if you've got like a slightly touch of like a red nose, then you could use a color corrector, and then use that underneath whatever it is that you're using on you know what I mean? On your nose. So a color correct. So if it's red, you would have something, and it looks crazy because it's green. But when you mix red and green, you get like a beige brown. So that's skin, isn't it? So you neutralize the color, and then I would then go over it with the normal one if you're struggling with that. I have been out on the hunt for a new face moisturizer. They discontinued it. I'm currently using the Olay one. My favourite one is the Charlotte Tilbury one, but I'm currently using the Olay one. I quite like that one as well. But my skin looks phenomenal when I put on the moisturiser and then I put on sun cream. It just looks so different. It makes a huge difference, I've noticed. And I noticed no matter what over the years, whenever I try to use all these acne, scar lightening, all this crap, the thing that actually made a difference was putting on SPF. Did they really, striking? I think own brand makeup in some drugstores are better now. They used to be awful. I'm bringing 2 eyeliner pens because I'll just leave one in my bag. Is there anything else in here that I might need? I need to put my moisturiser in here. They have. They do so much better. It's trimming. Self-care comes in different ways, doesn't it? I don't think I ever use an SPF. Oh my god, it made a huge difference. To me at least, it made a massive difference. I don't wear anything less than SPF 50, like almost every day. But yeah, so, oh, it's hard to tell because this camera's not fair. This camera's unfair. My face used to look like this. Yeah, Fuzzy, no problem. I have been enjoying trying out some new makeup looks from her, but I haven't done all of them yet. So I just wanted some to do that were quite easy. So my face was like this on both sides. When I used to wash my face, it would bleed. And then they left so many like indentations and scars, and they were so red. It was horrible. And it was like that for quite a few years. But when I dealt with the actual acne, I had meds for that. The scarring was what I was stressing about. And yeah, made a huge difference when I started using SPF 50 every day. Only Korean face moisturizer. No, a lot of face moisturizers have SPF 50 now. That's what I'm missing. I knew I was missing something. Let me sharpen this pencil. Like the sun in Mario 3. I haven't played Mario 3. But I have a friend in a similar situation. You just gotta be careful. You gotta look after yourself a lot more. Okay, and then the brushes that I need to bring. Powder brush, contour brush. But this is what I use for my foundation. Blush. Oh, I don't have like a nicer blush shade, but that's okay. Should I? Because I don't really like this blush shade that's in this palette, but I've just been using it to just use for the sake of using it. I don't want to bring a big one though. There's more stuff to carry, isn't it? Well, I'm sure I'll survive. It's not a big deal. The spotlight too. See if I like it. Haven't seen that. What's that? Oh, really, Spamfish? I hate this. In Mario 3, I don't think I played that one in particular. I'm looking around if there's anything else I should bring. Oh, my hair bubbles. Right, I got some hair bubbles. And then I'll bring my hair stick too. The source of many childhood crash out. I don't know which game it was that I used to get frustrated with, but I know there definitely would have been one. I wonder if I take out my... Wait, hang on a minute, chat. I need to connect my camera to my phone so I can print out pictures, because I was going to take some pictures for Ghost's grandma with my Polaroid. So I need to do that. Do you guys have an Instax? I really love it. Like, I love it so much. Like, to a point that feels unhuman. Pairing. Turn on Bluetooth in the settings screen of app. Okay. Pair a new device. Instax. Here we go. Pair. Yay! Now what? Is there an app? Oh, I have to download an app for it. Pokemon Yellow maybe going to full-blown meltdown because they had a point at the end of Mount Moon where Jesse and James fight you, and my Pikachu wasn't strong enough, so my dad had to do the fight for me. Your dad or your dad in the game? I packed us two. I have not. I'm gonna leave them at home. Here we go. App. You rarely have a dad. Nivius, please. Wicked Forever? No, I haven't seen it yet. I didn't see as much hype for Wicked Forever as I did for the first one, but that's fine. I just noticed okay. Let's scan. Okay, scan. You need to allow the device's camera information while using the app. Oh, I scan. Oh, okay. I don't want to do that. I want to connect. Gallery. Click scan on the home screen to photograph and... Okay, it's telling me that I can just take a picture of the but I don't want to do that. Can I not send a photo from my phone to the camera to print that out? And I thought I could use the camera as a printer. Oh my god, I've downloaded the wrong app. Sake, okay. Okay. God, because obviously there's more in mini link app. I think you should watch the original Wizard of Oz after watching Wicked Forever, and you'll find some of the new backstory really funny. Oh. Can I not just wait for them to redo the Wizard of Oz because it's creepy? But it's so creepy! The struggle never ends. You don't have enough space on your phone. Quick, get a new phone! Look, I think it's because of my downloads file from when I was scheduling a bunch of stuff. I've got pictures of Jason Statham in here. Don't remember why. Delete. Gave me nightmares. I didn't like his cheeks at all. No, I did not like him either. Delete. Instagram backup. Why? Delete, delete, delete. Delete, delete, delete. Oh, come on. Delete, 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 delete. These photos are dating back to November. A little something on your face. Don't worry. That's literally my everyday life on the internet. Delete. Do you have any games on your phone? I actually don't. I had some and then I deleted them because I needed space. Modern day problem. Oh, it's my WhatsApp videos as well. I send so many videos to people. I send like a dozen Instagram reels to friends almost daily. Fair. Yep, yep, here we go. WhatsApp images as well. I send so many things to people. Gosh, I'm pretty insufferable. Get rid of that. Now, especially with the story behind what happened on set. Yeah. Do you know what, Witchy? I was really annoyed about a lot of that because when I used to use the internet a bit more, there was this person, and I'm not trying to like with genuine, I can't remember her name. I can't remember. But like she would always talk about like all this information that she had about like the Wizard of Oz and all this stuff like on sets and stuff. It was cool. It was interesting. I found it interesting. However, she was saying how she's read so many books on what actually happened in the Wizard of Oz and how some of it was actually myth. I wanted to read it, but I couldn't find any books, and she would never say what they were, and it really annoyed me because I don't mean to like put disbelief in people, but I don't really understand at this point, like. But so. So how can anyone else find out for themselves? Because it kind of was just like, oh, you just have to like trust me, like, oh, I've read books on it, you know, that kind of thing. And so I wanted to read them for myself and understand and see it. Christ, I've got so much crap on my phone chat. And I haven't. Yeah, it just felt like, trust me, bro. It just felt like that. And so I would get really annoyed because I'd just be like, but you're saying these things to like counteract, like. To stop from other people from saying certain things, but when you say that, you know, oh, it's just fact, like, oh, I've read books and stuff on it, but which ones then? Because if it's public knowledge, then can more people know, or just you? Just cite the book. That's exactly what I thought, which is, so I'm not saying you're wrong and being like, oh, apparently not a lot of stuff didn't happen on set. Apparently some of it did and some of it didn't. But I have yet to find the book that these people have been talking about, which reveals. I just don't. Why? I mean, I know why it's probably gatekept, but Yeah, I don't know. If anyone knows of a book about what really was happening on set and stuff, then just let me know, because I'd really like to read it, because I don't like the Wizard of Oz. I find it weird. I think it's creepy. I'm not personally interested in it, but I'd be interested in... God, so many videos. I realise why. I'd be interested in just like finding out what happened and what's true and what isn't. But it just feels like people say these things and they've got no backup. People say that didn't actually happen. Right, because enough people say it, then people start believing it, right? They'd use like, yeah, that's the thing. It's like, so, I'm not saying you're wrong. People have been, oh my God, there's so many more. People have been saying like, oh yeah, that's what's been happening. It was used this, and then they used like asbestos for this, and then one guy died on a tree, and like they say all these things, and I'm not saying they're wrong. But I have also seen people say that was a myth. It didn't happen. There's books about that. And when you ask them for the books they're referencing to, they will not tell you. And that is where I get really annoyed. That's like, just, why can't you share that information? I like your angry eyebrows. Thank you. Agree them myself. Yeah, why can't that information be shared? Gosh, there's so much chat. There's absolute, my phone is full of absolute crap. They went to the basement, but the tunnel was covered over? Weird. About the blanks and how the gun wasn't loaded correctly. Blanks in the, yeah, that one. Yeah, I remember that one. Because then there was a big like call, wasn't there, for like, why do we need to use these, like, that specific type of prop? I think there was a big discussion about that, which I thought was interesting, because it's, you know, it sparks an interesting conversation. Yeah, Nicholas. So I've been doing some WWE looks. Not too many. Just been playing around with a few, and because they're quite quick and easy to do. And I needed something quick and easy to do today because I'm going on holiday tomorrow. So today I've got to finish packing and stuff. At the moment I'm trying to set up my my Instax camera with my phone, but then I ran out of memory on my phone. Yeah, Baldwin thing. Now, I'm sure someone died a few years ago on set, but not 100% sure if there was meant to be blanks in there. Yeah, it's confusing because it feels like there's been a few things that happen on certain sets. I don't want to pretend I know, though. That's the thing. You know what I mean? Making it more expensive. Yeah, I was just, but I was saying, like, it's interesting if it's gonna change anything to be like, you know, we need to move away from this now, is what I was thinking. Ghost needs my phone to check in. Lord help him if there's not enough space. Because he was like, do you have the cafe app? No. So I don't even know if he's going to be able to download the app. So we'll see. Bring it back in 5 minutes and tell me we can use our phone. But first I think they were going to go for like murder. Yeah, so going back to the topic of like the Wizard of Oz, etc. It's interesting how a lot of things in film and etc. change. One of the things that I wish was more understood is, the thing is like people have like these myths and stuff that happen in films. I'm not saying what you guys have told me is myths, but like things like in the Wizard of Oz, as an example, is I think that there was a guy who was like allergic to something and he died later on in life. But then people like try to put two and two together in the same sense of like, oh, the lady from Goldfinger died in the film, but like apparently she's still alive today. But then people take that information and then they run with it as if like it's real. And I think that's what I find to be really, really strange. Because I'm like, but you haven't even... But like that there could be so many other things as well. People try and put like two and two together, but there's so many things also that like you also wouldn't know about. And further to that, another thing that I find really strange recently, and I've noticed quite a lot of people do it, is when people talk about celebrities in a way as if they know them, and they're like, oh yeah, but like, you know, they just wouldn't do anything like that because like it's really like, you know, what they were thinking at the time. You don't know what they were thinking at the time. You don't know that at all. You don't know them. I think it was the same thing as the witch. She got burned from her body paint. That's the thing, right, Witchy? Because she's got an allergy, but a lot of people are like, you shouldn't do that because it's going to burn you. You know what I mean? Like, they miss out this really key... It's really strange to me, like... Yeah, because... Yeah, but there was a thing that happened with that. Yeah, Shirley the Golden was currently 88 years old. Right, and then that's when it comes down to, like, I painted myself gold and was like, Goldfinger's not a documentary. Because people treat me like, oh my god, you shouldn't do that because I watched Goldfinger and you're going to die. I painted myself gold, and then I was kind of like, look, it's fine. It's makeup. It's pretend. And then I remembered one comment I got, which I just didn't know what to say. It was like, but like, so this is, but that's what I'm saying though, isn't it? And then somebody commented and was like, yeah, but I bought paint, me and my sister bought paint from the $1 store and covered ourselves in that. And we got really ill. And I was like, yeah, but it's not body paint. Like, it's from the, like, well, what are you doing? So that's the thing though, Ryan, is what I'm saying is like, people are saying these things, but then it's also apparently been proven that that's not true. So I'm not saying it isn't true. What I'm saying is like, there's apparently a lot of myths that happened on the Wizard of Oz set. People say that a lot of things happen, and then people are also disproving it, but apparently it's in books, and apparently, but then people aren't citing these books. So that is the thing about that I don't believe for another 50 years or so. But you could do so many things in that time. You could be a heavy smoker and people are like, it's because she breathed it in into her lungs. Like, there's so many things that can happen that don't necessarily link back to this one time you used gold body paint. Like, there's just not, you can't use that as a plausible argument. And also, nobody here is their doctor. You just can't use that as an argument. That's like, you don't know these people. You don't know what they do. Some people might be drug addicts. You don't know what what some people are putting in their body. Some people roll around in things like loft insulation because they think it's fun. And you don't, like, some people do some stuff like that, and then but they don't know about that. And then they're like, oh yeah, well, like, you know, she did so-and-so, and then like she's got this skin rash all over her. But the skin rash could be from something else. Like, you can't pinpoint these two different things. And if they're 50 years apart, it makes it so much worse. Oh, Kyle. No, that was another one. Yeah, it was another one. The effects might not show up for another 50 years. I don't get it. Sorry. From what you're saying, Ryan, I've heard that one before, and a lot of people talk about that one, but I've also seen people say it's not true. But again, it comes down to like speculation. There were so many lies. Yeah, because no one actually knows as well. That's the thing, is like, it comes down to speculation. And I just find it so bizarre how like people come up with a conclusion for someone that they don't know, they've never met. Then they just, I don't understand how you think you can come to a conclusion on something like that. I just don't understand. I don't get it. I don't understand. I just find that so strange. I read about that he was killed by the Triads. Yeah, but people don't know for sure though. Like, that's the thing, is that people speculate. It's like, I can say what I think happened to something that happened on the news, but I don't have all the information, and they also withhold information too. We know they do. You just can't. You just have to. And it's not a side effect. Yeah, so it's got nothing to do with it. Oh, that's interesting, 8-bit. People have theories, but some of them are really bizarre. Yeah, I don't mind the idea of like, you know, speculating and stuff, but to me it's like when people are like, oh yeah, definitely this. And I just think that's really strange. Like, you don't know these people. People come up, I'm gonna tell you right now, people have come up with things about me. I will tell you some of these things that got spread around. None of these people actually knew me personally. Some of the stuff that got spread around about me, I'm sure you'd all be like, what the hell, that's really strange. But again, it's about people who don't know me or anything. Some of the rumors that have been spread around me is that all of my stuff is completely photoshopped. This was before AI. All of my stuff is completely photoshopped. It's not real. I can't paint like that. I control what my friends post on their social media platforms. I'm in control of all of that, and I tell them when they can and can't post, and I control everyone. My mods all hate me because I'm really horrible to them, and none of them are actually like me. I specifically paint in such a way that causes eating disorders for other people on purpose. Right, and so what my example with this is like, that's been people have come up with that when they think they know me by seeing things on social media, right? We'd all be like, what the hell? That's so strange, right? But equally, a lot of people still do that with celebrities, and they do that with other people. So if they're doing that with me, a lot of the time people still do that with others. I mean, you don't know these people. You just can't say for sure what's going on with a lot of these people. We can speculate, but we don't know. That's what's really important. Bye, babe. And I agree, a lot of these people have nothing else to do, but we have to understand that, like, we can speculate, but we don't actually know. Like, you guys can ask me and I'd be like, that's crazy. Like, no. Can control minds for your paints. That's outstanding. Incredible. People need better hobbies. Yeah. So it's strange to me when people kind of like, oh yeah, this happened. And the reason, like, thank you. Okay, that's okay. Ghost said he's not happy with the seats we got. Okay, I can go back to deleting everything. But like, we just have to remember that we just don't know a lot of these people, and that's really, really, really important. We just can't speculate a lot, and it's really unfair to speculate when we just. Well, it's not fair to, you know, say for sure when we don't know. That's really, really important, and I want more people to just really understand that we don't know a lot of like, we don't know the facts of absolutely everything, and information gets withheld. And so going back to something like The Wizard of Oz, I genuinely fully believe, like, unless you were on set, and even then you probably don't know. We just can't tell. Like, you can't say for sure. You don't know what certain things are. Like, certain materials we can try and figure out, but a lot of us are not experts in like being able to find that out, which is why I was frustrated, because I wanted to get the information from people who were there and, you know, wrote books about stuff, but then that information had been withheld. Hi, Star Wars lady. Right, I think I have now deleted, like, let's see, empty trash. There we go. Clear my phone. The other thing is, if people brought up stories, that would totally be possible, because they're about things that happened years after he died. Yeah, like... Excuse me. Okay, right, now I can try and download this app again. Oh, he did download an app. Probably have to delete something. Let's see, what was I looking for? Instax app. Install. Okay, now I'm going to delete the other one. Yes. So I'm trying to link my phone to my Instax camera, and I downloaded the wrong app, and then I tried to download the correct app, and then I didn't have enough space on my phone. Starly, thank you so much. How's work been going today? I've been doing more reading. Got like 20 emails. Whoa. The Instax mini link app keeps stopping. It don't work. The app don't work. Wow. Fully broken. It just shuts itself. What? The Instax mini link. I wanted to print a photo. Oh, okay. Remove app? What if I try and download it again? Uninstall this app. They used to tell me about things he had done, but they were all from a movie I watched weeks ago, so I wasn't sure if he was lying out some kind of issue dealing with reality. As now, he hasn't changed that much. I've seen people like that who like lie all the time, but in a way that like it seems like they're not aware. Okay, I download again. It is strange, yeah. Or the app specific to your camera model, like the Instax Mini Evo app. Chat, I think I downloaded the wrong app again. Instax Mini Evo. Alright, there's a different app. I'll get there in the end. Try. To get a positive react. Right, but Nivea's like, I couldn't live with myself. That's the thing I can't comprehend. Oh, like this one looks like it might work. Let me uninstall the other one. Jesus Christ. Uninstall. To use this app, you need to allow the device, your nearby devices. That's fine. Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, that's fine. No problem. Yeah, all right, no problem. It's limited. You need to allow access to the, oh my god, I've just filled out all this information. Mini Evo app keeps stopping. Chris, what colour would you like? It just keeps shutting itself down. I pick. Okay, pink. Do you have much left to do today? Not really, no. I'd like to do some more filming, but I think I'm probably pushing it. I think I'm mostly packed. My tongue hurts. We were doing some more of those, like, videos from... Oh, we're doing some more of those like transition videos this morning, but it kept going wrong. So we yeah, there we go. I had to keep washing it off my tongue, and now my tongue is really sore. Okay, well, cool. So I can't I can't transfer the photos from my phone to my camera. So okay, fine. Let me Google this app with the words doesn't work. What can I say? Bad tech aura. Doesn't work. Not connecting. Why isn't the app not working? How to fix? Does it have to be a video? Can you not? Evo app keeps stopping. Does the M stand for mine? Where's the M? Hi, new book arrived today, so I sorted. Yay! Rise and Demon, are you talking about my name? Rise and Demon, I'm sure you can really see how my community's responded to that. Is no different to how I feel about that. So it kind of sounds a little bit like you're pushing it. So don't make it sound like you're flirting with me at all, even if you weren't. If it comes across as flirting, in a lot of cases, it's an instant ban. So do not do that. And then I have to resort. So I sorted my mail prints into there. Now I have to resort the order when the oh yeah, resort it all out. Got you. Okay, well be careful because you're probably on the last warning now with my mods. So don't do that. Okay, it doesn't work. Not working at all. Need feedback. Here we go. I'm totally new to this. I use 3 different Instax apps. Who has the time? I just tested them and they work for me. Thank you. No! No! The app was a bit buggy. I had to restart the app multiple times to transfer a printed photo on my phone. I just bought this and the app is not working. I haven't been able to print. I'm very disappointed. I'm going to have to return the item. Okay. All right, well, this is, okay. Oh no, it's just smell. Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Most useless comment. Yeah, you see those and you just kind of think like, great. I'm so happy for you. Okay, but like back to the point, it's broken. I now need help. Kayla, help me. Kayla, something else broke too. Kayla. Okay, well. Oh my god, my back. Well, chat, we did the makeup look. We tidied the room. I packed my makeup away. Do you have any Fujifilm? Oh, sorry. This one's the Instax that I'm trying to connect the app to. I want to print out a photo from my phone to here. I want to put a photo on here from my phone. I have the Instax Mini Evo. This is what I'm trying to do. This one here. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, well, it doesn't make sense. It's confusing, isn't it? Because I've got two different Fujifilm cameras. But yeah, this one. Is that what I got you? Yeah, it was. That's why it's broken. I'm bad luck now. Time for Tomb Raider. Let's go. You know that's not true. You know that's it now. Last night I had to go. I had to go offline pretty quick because I was gonna cry. Directly to the camera. Oh, not a bad shout actually. You were... Oh, but I'd still need the app to tell it to... Unless it would recognize it as a printer? Do I have a USB-C to USB-C? That's USB-C to USB. Let's have a look, shall we? Oh, okay. I need to. Okay, I think it's a good idea, but I don't have a USB-C to USB-C cable in here. That's not being used to like turn my computer on. You're very talented. Thank you. We did an easy makeup look today because I'm about to go on holiday. That's very kind of you. Positive. Thank you. You caught me just before I was about to go on holiday. So if you don't see me for a while, it's not that, oh my god, I followed the streamer and then she disappeared. It's time for me. I'm gonna go on holiday. Alibaba. To do it via the PC. Maybe, but the reason why I scared you away, yeah, that was it. It's all you. The reason why is because I wanted to take photos with my phone and then print them out when I'm there to give to Ghost Grandma. It's really outdated. Thank you very much. These are like 2.5 years ago. So if you would like to see better things, I do recommend doing !S. Yeah, Ken. So like I don't mind doing that, but like, yeah, I'll have to try it on Ghost phone. Kind of annoying. Watch him not have any space on his phone either. At least I managed to like clear space on my phone. Okay. All right, well, I have to finish packing. So I'm gonna go. And I'll see you all in February. But am I gonna work on the new slider video? Thank you very much. I am taking the rest of January off because I have not had a break in like 2.5 years. A proper break. A proper break. Okay, thank you. Bye, thank you. I'll pop into Discord from time to time. But I promise you, it won't be like worky work. If you see my stuff being posted on socials, please know that they've been scheduled. So no worries on those, but I tried to put some fun bits in there as well. There's some unboxings. The holiday is almost a month, I know. I'm going to, we'll stare at you in Discord. This is like little emote. Thank you very much, everyone. Please know that your shop orders have now been sent out. The giveaways half of them have been sent out. The rest of the yeah, see you in February. The rest of them will get sent out when the stamps arrive. They were meant to arrive today. I don't think they did, but we'll see. So I'm so sorry. You guys did too many giveaways, and yeah. Yeah, Kyle, let me know about that as well. If you don't get the order that you did before, we just have to assume it's been lost and we'll get another one to you. I'm really sorry about that. Obviously, it's out of our control. But yeah, regardless. I'm gonna go. Let's raid Kayla. Bye, everyone. Thank you very much for being here. Please check out the socials. I spent quite a long time making videos and scheduling a month's worth of videos to go live, so it'll look like I'm not really too far gone. Thank you very much, everyone, and I will see you guys. See you guys when I come back from holiday. When I inevitably throw myself a welcome back party. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you. Bye.